Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butts, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. Since 2009, HRN podcasts have been exploring the wide world of food, beverage, and agriculture. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
This episode is brought to you by Wisconsin Cheese. We've been making cheese in Wisconsin since before we were even a state, which may be one reason why we win so many awards for it. It's what happens when a whole state dreams in cheese. Find your next favorite cheese at wisconsincheese.com.
We talk about food, we talk about music, with musical dudes, finger on the pulse, snacky tunes.
Hello and welcome to Snacky Tunes. I am your host, Darren Bresnitz. To kick off Valentine's Day, sit down with Valerie Gordon, the creative director and executive chef of Valerie Confections. We chat about her lifelong dedication to giving the perfect guest. She reminisces about the early days of building her business and shares some details and upcoming events about her new headquarters clubhouse located in beautiful Glendale. Then in the second half of the show, we head deep into the archives for a live in-studio performance by Diane Birch, who is here to talk about her 2016 album, The Self-Produced New. It's a great episode and one to share with your loved ones for this romantic holiday coming up. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy Snacky Tunes here on Heritage Radio Network.
Governor says stay home, saving the arms of a lover. We barely come back from the summer. I wanna watch the sky coming down like it's the end, like it's the end. Walking the air is no joke, spinning the edge of the weather. It's any wonder you still together. And I hold up the sky, coming down until the end, until the end.
Valerie, welcome to Snacky Tunes. Thank you so much for taking time out of what is the busy season. This is going to air right before Valentine's Day, but we are in the last 2 weeks recording right now, and so I'm sure the heat is on or the chocolate is flowing. It's your Super Bowl, as the Super Bowl is also upon us as well.
It is. There's a lot of hearts. There's so many hearts happening right now in every form imaginable, in white chocolate, milk chocolate, bittersweet chocolate, sugar cookies. There will be hearts on pies. There's just hearts everywhere. There's a lot of love.
I mean, it sells. Do I get my heart-shaped pizza this year for Valentine's Day? Time will only tell.
Will
I'm
you
still
get
waiting.
a cheese crust?
Oh my gosh. You know what I think would be good? If someone did French onion soup and the crouton on top or the bread on top was a heart.
Adorable.
Yeah.
There's really no limit to the hearts in Valentine's Day. There's no limit.
No. So I was reading about you, and one of the things that I found really interesting is that this idea of cooking and creating and giving food as a gift has been something you've done your entire life, starting at a very young age. Mm-hmm. And, some people paint, some people do throw pottery, some people write songs. But what is it about making something sweet, something that has this confection angle to it, and giving it as a gift that has been part of your whole life?
I think what I was initially attracted to as a child when I was baking cookies and bringing them to people and started doing these little gifts, it really was about the response. And I noted it to be significantly different, even from like a third grader's eyes. Like, wow, Ingrid just got so happy that I just gave her these cookies. And there was this level of anticipation and unabashed joy when you would give someone chocolate chip cookies at Grattan Elementary in San Francisco. And And I found the older I got, then people would start to anticipate these gifts for me. Oh my God, am I on your Christmas list this year?
Right.
What are you making this year? That kind of thing. And it just never ends. And I think that the glorious thing about a sweet, whether it be a box of chocolate or a pie or a box of cookies or one cookie, is it really feels, it's a treat in every way, shape, and form. It's not a piece of toast, which can also be a treat. Of course, I enjoy toast, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's not something you eat all day long.
Right. It's a moment.
Something, yeah. And people will say, I'm spoiling myself. I'm getting myself a slice of cake, right? So it's that thing of spoiling people. And I think the other thing that elicits this kind of response is jewelry. When you gift someone jewelry.
Sure.
And this was something that we really studied when we were starting Valerie Confections was,
interesting.
Yeah, I really did a deep dive on Tiffany. And that thing of getting a blue bag, and then the box and what's inside and that feeling. And so when we were developing the packaging of Valerie Confections, that was like that was a very serious point of study, was the feeling of receiving a gift and the unwrapping of a gift and what emotions come up. And I interviewed a bunch of people as we were figuring out the packaging. And it is, I don't know, it is sort of this amazing thing. And food is like, no pun intended, it is my love language.
Right.
If I care about you, if you're in my life, if I want to express something to you, like I am doing that primarily with food. And whether I'm shipping it to you, dropping it on your front porch, preparing a meal, so like even like my neighbors that I'm friends with, they get drop-offs. If I'm testing stuff, I'm like, they'll just get a pie, they'll get a cake, they'll get cookies. And it's like, there
incredible.
it is. Yeah. And they get really happy.
Yes. So you mentioned doing a deep dive on the design and the boxes and figuring out, and you've been in this business for almost 2 decades now, and you are from San Francisco, which is home of one of the most famous chocolate brands. And when I grew up, I remember taking a trip there and visiting there and being like, well, chocolate doesn't get better than this. And then I realized, no, chocolate does get much, I don't want to say better, but it's different. There's different levels, especially when you get into the artisanal or smaller brands. Can you take us back to what that landscape of chocolate looked like when you were getting started, how you even knew that branding, especially at a luxury level as a comparison, had to be part of it, and what you wanted to do differently than what was already being offered?
So I think you're talking about C's, which if you look at our collection, 90% of my chocolates are an homage to C's.
Well, I was talking about Ghirardelli because I remember going to San Francisco and being like, look at these individually wrapped squares. Does it get more elegant?
So I have to say I was much more, C's is iconic to me.
Oh my God,
and
of course.
There's so many things about C's that I riff on. Like you walk into Valerie Confections, you get a sample of chocolate. That is a direct line to C's. When you walk in the door at C's, and there's like and then you anticipate going to C's just to go to the store. You're like, oh yes, the lady in the white dress is going to give me a chocolate when I walk in the door. And so immediately you're spoiled when you walk into C's.
It's already special.
It's already special. So there was like growing up, and I grew up in a very different era. In the 70s, kids were allowed to go places by themselves. And now it's like, and I always joke about this. I'm like, my children would be taken from me from child services if they lived the way I lived as a grammar school child.
Oh my God.
But
I'll be back.
Amazing.
I have no phone. When the sun sets, I'll be home and I'll be safe.
At some point, I'm just going to pop on some public transportation, get my transfer, and right on. I'll check you for dinner.
I mean, I used to take the bus and train into Philadelphia all the time.
Yeah.
By myself.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. Like your parents would be arrested now. That is like child endangerment. You let a kid under 12 do anything, it's like they are coming for you so hot and
Yeah.
heavy. So there were a few really important bakeries there. There was one called Fantasia. There was something called Tasahara. And there was also department store shopping. That was really a thing then. And you had the same thing, obviously, in New York, in Chicago. You know, there are these iconic department stores that always had a candy counter that was really chic and super bespoke. And like, I would go shopping in Union Square, and these are the things that really, really, I think, formed my aesthetic and how I perceived care and luxury. And from I. Magnin, which closed forever ago, to Macy's, to Neiman Marcus, like something that I did as a teenager, and this is such a weird thing in reflection. Like my best friend and I would go to the rotunda at Neiman Marcus and have afternoon tea. That's a pretty weird thing. And we weren't like rich kids either. We were not rich kids. Like we went to public school, but we were both like, yes, afternoon tea and the carts. And it was such a thing. And seeing the pedophores and the precious scones and the level of service and the half lemon with mesh coating. It's like all of these things really informed our brand. And I do think that there are certain, food is so wrapped up in memory, right? And it's so wrapped up in emotional recall. And these are the moments that made me feel the most joyous, the most comfortable, and I would say the most transported. When I would sit down at the rotunda with my best friend and tea service would happen, it was just like there's nothing wrong in the world.
Just
this
a little
is
bit of
the happiest
escapism.
Place. Completely.
And all of the intent behind what was being served and how it's designed and things like that. So, it's one thing in many ways to think about starting a business. It's quite another to get it off the ground. Did you have a mentor? Did you have any guide? And again, this is 18, 19, 20 years ago. And starting a business then is different than it is now. I feel there are so many ways where it's easier to get the word out, and media is different, and social media, and you build a website and a brand and things like that. How did you get started? And then how did you know early on that you also needed to differentiate your offerings from just chocolate and include other types of pies and confections and things like that?
So the first part of the question, did I have a mentor when we got started, and how did this all play out? We started the company. This is funny. I started recipe testing February 2004. And I was managing a restaurant called Les Deux Cafés for 4 or 5 years before Valerie Confections started. And this is with somebody who's quite the icon in the fashion world now, Michelle Lamy, who is Rick Owens' wife and is like so famous. It's nuts. Like it's like, wow, that's so weird. Like, it's just so funny. So I started managing that restaurant the second day I was in Los Angeles.
Wow.
I was 27 years old, and I had a staff of 50. And I drop into LA, and I'm given the keys to this restaurant where we host things like Madonna's party and,
of course,
Lenny Kravitz's party. And I'm just like truly faking it until I made it. It was I have no fucking clue how to do any of this stuff. And, I have to create a bistro in the parking lot. Okay.
Sure.
Like, how do I do that? So it definitely, and I think Michelle's mind is one of the most creative minds. She really, and so I would say my years spent with her were very informative, and she was so good in having this idea of figure it out. And also, like, she wouldn't overguide you, and either you knew or you didn't know. And if you didn't know, then she didn't have a whole lot of time for you.
No, of course.
And if you did know, then she would keep you around and keep you in the fold. And so I learned so much about creating a moment in that fold about creating
Mm-hmm.
something a little bit different, and
Yes.
also going with what you like. Don't do what everybody else is doing. And this is also like, I'm a half breed. I'm half Chinese, half Jewish. And when I was growing up, we were like, there weren't a lot of us. So I never really fit in. My sisters and I were all sort of this anomaly. So
No, of course.
I think like expectations as far as this is what you have to do never really applied to us. So there was this thing about being a free thinker and also creating my own path that was from conception, really. So, but I would say Michelle had a big influence on how I went about orchestrating it. And I also had met a lot of people working at Les Deux Cafés.
I'm sure.
One of the most, I think, one of the biggest influences on the look and feeling of the packaging was Paul Fortune, who is the interior designer who did Les Deux Cafés and also the Sunset Tower. He does all of Marc Jacobs' residences. Sadly, he passed away a couple of years ago. But he and I were very good friends. And after the cafe closed, I got this idea to start a chocolate company. And where it came from really was, I really was thinking about, what have I always loved? What has always made me happy? And it was like, it always went back to dessert. And people had said to me for years, you've really got to start your own company. And I thought, I don't know if I really want that. I don't know if I want that. I don't think you actually ever clock out when you start your own company. I don't know if I want all that. That was absolutely correct. But clearly there have been benefits to this. So after the cafe closed, I just thought, what have I always loved?
Yeah.
And so I got this idea about 4 weeks after it closed. It's toffee. We're starting with toffee. And I had sort of tracked luxury chocolates and specialty foods and things like that. It's gone now, but like Neiman Marcus here used to have this wonderful candy counter where you could walk in and get pâte de fruits from Paris and all these other things. And I just always loved like the acquisition of these gorgeous things and how that made me feel. So, and I noticed in luxury chocolate that no one was doing toffee and everyone was doing truffles, and companies that were really hitting some high points at that time were things like Vosges, Mary Bell, Michael Ricciuti. There were a lot of different companies that were coming up and getting press. And I thought, no one's doing toffee. And this is like the unsung hero of the confection world. And you get it in those, broken shards like you do at C's or Almond Roca or Little John's, but no one was doing it in a refined way. And I just thought, what if we take toffee and apply some of these methodologies that are happening with truffles that are getting more and more popular and corner this market? And we package it in a way that looks like somewhere between Prada and Chanel.
Love it.
And where Paul was really amazing is I always go to a variety of people for input and feedback. Like I really like to hear opinions about stuff. And I know what I like, but I also, I like input and I like the collective. I like working with a group. So Paul was amazing in saying, this box is really chic, babe, or this flavor is really good, or ooh. And he would, like, I would show him something and be like, ooh, that's really good.
You need that. You need someone who's just being able to be like, I like it or I hate it, and trust them. Trust them in that opinion.
Totally.
Trust them in that opinion.
So, and then I had all these taste testers that ranged in age from, I want to say 12 to 60. There's this 12-year-old girl who was like really a chocolate fan and could just devour boxes of chocolates. And I was like, Laura, I want your tasting notes. when I'm doing these, when I'm testing these recipes. And it's amazing because she and her mom are both, lifelong customers, and it's pretty amazing.
Sure.
So that's how that all started. And really the idea was to create something that was perennial. And one thing I've always done is stay away from trends.
Yeah.
Anything that feels like a hot moment, I'm like, I run from it. I run from it. And what is pretty great and something we're very proud of is our packaging has changed very little in 19 years.
I mean,
Our
that's
products,
incredible.
like our core products, those toffees we started with are still made the exact same way, just in larger batches and packaged the exact same way. And that I have to say feels pretty good. And there have been tons of products that have come and gone
Of
over
course.
the years, like some things you make and you're just like, yeah, that's nuts. That takes 5 hours and that's really stupid.
And the people tell you they don't want it too. They go, no,
Yeah,
thanks. Thank you, but no.
totally. And
But
if you're looking at your collection and there are certain items that, oh God, we only sold 10 boxes of that new product. That's not living long then, people. That's gone.
Yeah.
And then you asked about how we expanded out beyond chocolate. That really happened leading up to the recession, which was an interesting time. So
The 2008, 2009 recession?
Yes. And that's when things really went in a different direction. So in 2007 is when we launched the Pettifours. And the Pettifours were a true homage to the Pettifours that I saw at Fantasia in San Francisco, but also to like trippy stuff, like the Swiss Colony, the Swiss Colony catalogs that come out every year. And I would see these commercials and be like, I want that. Like, I want those little cake squares that little mouse is hustling. That's what I want. And so I don't know. It was something I always thought about. And I was like, what if we do some really great Pettifours? This is sort of like the go-between between chocolate and cake. It's sort of halfway in between.
Yeah.
And at that time also, we didn't have a brick and mortar. And so it was all about shipping product to people. So Pettifours, we figured out how to ship them. And then we had to design the box and the whole thing. And then from Pettifours, it went into cakes. But where it really sort of blew out and doing all the pastries, savory stuff, jams, cookies was during the recession. And that's because holiday 2008, we had that was the year that we really should have blown up major. We had 2 pages in the Williams-Sonoma catalog. We had a cover on the Dean and DeLuca catalog.
Okay.
We were in the Bergdorf Goodman catalog. We had a huge stand at Takashimaya on Fifth Avenue.
All the heavy hitters.
All the heavy hitters. We were positioned to go, and it all crashed, right? So then it was oh shit. no one's buying $100 boxes of chocolates. This blows. So it was well, what are people buying? And if this whole thing of us shipping product to people isn't really working very well, then let's look local. And so we established Valerie at the market. And we set up all these booths at the farmers markets and sourced fruits and herbs and things like that from the farmers markets. So we just really changed the scope of what we made and who we sold to, because you're going to get a muffin for $4, but you might not get a big box of chocolate when your stock portfolio crashes. You still need a muffin. You still need breakfast. You still want a treat.
Toast. Yeah.
You still need a treat, but maybe it's going to come in a different form. And so that was actually really, I thought that was a really interesting time. And that time actually really prepared us for the pandemic of, hey, the course is shifting, get in front of this. And
Right.
and instead of looking at what you can't do, look at what you can do. And so we were able to it was almost like reflex when the pandemic hit, how we pivoted things. But that's how we started doing all the pastries, et cetera. And then that led to me writing a cookbook and opening brick and mortars because, I think people offering chocolate, but also pastries and also all these other things, definitely, I think it appeals more to the clientele. And then it's an everyday thing. It's not just, you don't eat a box of chocolates every day. Most people don't.
No.
I don't know.
Let's take a quick musical break, and then I want to come back. I want to talk about the new space that you just opened in Glendale and some of the music that you play when you're in the kitchen. We have a song from the archives here on Snacky Tunes on Heritage Radio Network.
I got a friend with a lot of ambition. He don't got all the right education. He don't need anybody's permission. It's always alright on Saturday night. He's in love with a girl whose reputation is showing up alone without a boyfriend. And every time they miss their connection, 'cause he don't know she's ready to go. No. Is it ever really the right time to fall in love? And so she's dancing all alone in the moonlight. And he's lighting up the sky like a firefly. Will it ever really be? Will it ever really be? Will it ever really be? Will it ever really be the right time to fall in love? Then she smiles and she says that she's leaving. She don't have to give him a reason. There's no way that'll wait another season. He brought her in close and told her that most of all, is it ever really the right time to fall in love? And she's dancing all alone in the moonlight. And he's lighting up the sky like a firefly. Will it ever really be? Will it ever really be? Will it ever really be? Will it ever really be the right time to fall in love? She's dancing all alone in the moonlight. And he's lighting up the sky like a firefly. Will it ever really be? Will it ever really be? Will it ever really be? Will it ever really be the right time to fall in love?
Hello and welcome back to Snacky Tunes. We're here with Valerie Gordon, executive chef and creative director at Valerie Confections. And you're talking about the big pivotal switch during the section of 2008, 2009, and how you became an LA company and set you up for future success down the road. But in general, and I'm not sure if it was this year or a few years later, when did you feel that you had crossed over into an established company and felt secure that it wasn't just going to go away overnight?
Oh, I
and if that answer is never, then I understand that as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I still feel, I don't know. I was at an event last night and people were like, oh my God, you're Valerie from Valerie Confections. And it's like, I'm still shocked people know about us.
Sure.
So I think I'm pretty humble as far as that has to go. I don't take any customers for granted.
Of course.
I don't take, and I think this is the entrepreneur thing where when you start a company out of your apartment by rubbing 4 dimes together, which we did, I think that you never completely release that feeling. I think there's always that push. There's always that drive for like, keep going, what's next? There's never a resting on the laurels. You know what I mean? Or resting on your laurels. I never feel that way.
Of course.
It's always like, it's always a constantly moving vehicle.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you keep innovating. That's how you keep growing. And probably also speaks to why you recently opened up this new, we'll call it a clubhouse or headquarters.
I love Clubhouse.
Yeah. The Valerie Confections Clubhouse in Glendale. And now you already had the restaurant, which had a bit of a commissary back area as well, but nothing compared to what you've just opened. Can you talk a little bit about the new space, the story behind wanting to open it, and how you got to finally turning on the lights and opening the doors?
Yeah. So I would say getting through the deep part of the pandemic, I think was very difficult for all food business owners and really everybody. But there are certain industries that I think, we never got to do that thing where we just sheltered in place. We still had to go to work. And luckily with our business, we were able to go to work, but it was hard. It was a very hard time to take care of the staff, take care of ourselves. So I think that whole process of 2020, 2021 was intense. It was tiring. It was hard. And by the end of 2021, my husband and I really felt like we want to do this differently. We want to make some big changes in this company. And we want to, and I think also after doing this company for 18 years, I discovered that there are elements of the business that I wanted to explore more fully, that I hadn't had an opportunity to do. I realized that there were certain things that were really stimulating me outside of the company and trying to figure out, how do I bring these things into the company? So we sort of, analyze what do we want to be doing at this stage in our lives and at this stage in the company, and what kind of company do we want to own, and what kind of an environment do we want for our staff and for our customers. And I think one of the big things that came out of the pandemic is, how does the food industry treat itself? And not just how are employers treating employees. There was a lot of talk about what people are paid, lifestyles, long hours, people quitting, environment. And we were looking at that, but also at our own lives. Like, how is our work environment right now? Do we feel stimulated every day? Or do we feel like, good God, I don't want to sit in the back of this kitchen one more day and change this,
Right.
Because we had been in the same space for a long time for our commissary. And there was a stress element in that space for sure. So we were looking for a different situation, and there were certain logistical things we really needed. We wanted parking for our staff, which we didn't have in the previous one. Like you roll to work and it's like, fuck, and then you're like trolling for parking. That's a horrible way to get to work. And it was
a terrible
like,
way to start your day.
It's an awful way to start your day. Yeah. And that really was big in our hunt for a new place, was we have to have parking for our staff. So that was big.
By the way, that is the most LA thing. It's so funny. You want to talk about really being an LA company? The fact that parking is part of what you need to grow and be better.
Completely. It was just like I would watch employees show up to work every day, stressed, walking in the door, like, it took me 15 minutes to find parking. That's awful. That's hideous, right? Hideous.
Yeah. Of course.
So that was really big in finding this new place, but also we needed more space. We needed better walking space, and I really wanted nice communal areas. So we actually found this space on Craigslist, which is nuts. We had 3 brokers looking for us, and Stan found this place on Craigslist. And it was a catering company, and it's pretty great. It's 5,000 square feet, 2 buildings with a garden in between. Heaven, right? And I was like, right on. So when we first looked at this place, I want to say it was last June. So this all happened really quickly. Yeah. And it was in very poor condition. It had been a catering company that was sort of abandoned. There was just like crap everywhere. It was it was kind of like, God, it felt like a hoarder's reality TV show, but like dirty and kind of abandoned. Also, it was wild. But structurally, it was like, this place actually has everything we need. There were 3 hoods, bones,
as they say.
2 walk-ins, the parking lot, permitted, all of it. And so it was like, okay, we need to do like a really big facelift and then go. So that's what we did. And the timing worked out really well. And this space really affords us to do a lot of things we'd always wanted to do and couldn't. There is a chocolate room. There's 2 very large baking kitchens. There's a retail space. And from the retail space, you can see the chocolate production room, which is really fun. Because there's this really, with dessert, with a lot of food, there's a real voyeuristic thing. Yeah. Folks want to watch. So they can watch. I love teaching classes. And this is something I travel a lot to do. Like, I'll get booked at this place or that place to teach a class. And I'm like, wow, we can teach classes here. And hosting events is something else I really like to do. So this is something we would do. We started doing in our home more and more, and just sort of putting interesting groups of people together and like different walks of life a little bit, like fashion people and design people with food people and educators and like just actors and, a fun mix of people. And doing these meals and having friends come and stuff like that. And it was like, well, what if we really structure that and do that here? And so we've already started doing that, which is amazing. We've had 2 events in the last week and a half, actually. Wow. We had an event with the Art of Tea and Lettuce Grow and Small Hold the Chic Mushroom Company and Perfect White Tea, which is this really cool sweatshirt company, cool. Sweat clothes fashion company. Yeah. And it's like, and it all worked so well. And then last weekend, we hosted our first book signing. And it was a really fun event. So Eliza J. Sokolow, who's a dear friend, she just wrote this great cookbook.
She's great. She was on Snackitunes years ago.
I love her. So she was our very first book signing. And so like for her event, she's doing the signing, parents and kids are here. Then I did a pie lesson with everybody. They ate fresh fruits and snacks, 2 hours, glorious day, and on they go. So we're planning all these different events here. And really the point is community and bringing people together and having this shared experience. And we just feel very lucky now to have found this space, that we got it open so quickly and that people are excited about it is pretty fun. It's pretty fun.
I mean, that's
so
amazing.
It's a whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing.
Now, obviously, a spot like that has a big vibe. And I know that music is a big part of your spaces, both in the kitchen and when you're doing creative work, but also when people walk in. Talk me through some of the soundtracks when you're making chocolate, coming up with new products, or just people are coming for an event or a dinner.
So different vibes for different places for sure. At our Echo Park location, which is sort of its own thing and really
Great
very
cafe.
community based. Thank you. We have a lot of musicians who work there.
I mean, you're in the heart of,
like a lot.
You're in the dead center of it. Taking a lot of coffee
know.
meetings there. How about that? Let's just leave it there. Yeah.
Like a lot. So we really let, the staff, I give certain metrics where I'm like, it can't be profane and it can't sound angry. Like it can't be too loud, too urgent, or too angry. And other than that, folks kind of jive with it. I find music that feels familiar and makes you want to linger is the music that should happen at Valerie Echo Park. So, and it really depends from day to day. It could be, I'm a huge Brian Ferry fan.
Sure.
And I think that Brian Ferry is always appropriate.
Anytime,
there's
any situation.
There is no wrong with Brian Ferry in my eyes. I'm also, I like the Brit Boys. I love Harry Styles. I love, there's just every generation of Brit Boys I'm pretty much down with. So that's sort of the Echo Park thing. Here, if we've got an event going on, so say like the tea event we did, that's more ambient music because really it's about conversation.
Yes, of course.
So it's more, sort of jazz, cool, like, you could riff on some like Massive Attack kind of stuff. And again, so there might be a slightly familiar beat to it, but it's not distracting.
Right.
So that's sort of event music when we really want people to be mingling and having conversations. In the kitchen, I like a little energy in the kitchen. If you have music that is too, low and slow, I think that the energy of the room really starts to dip. So I love things like, Rihanna, Beyonce, like sort of R&B pop, I think is really fun in the kitchen. Also, a lot of R&B pop is really kind of the deal for sure in the kitchen is my favorite. And it gets you kind of you get going.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get going and you feel good and you feel upbeat. Things like that are sort of too emo. Yeah.
Wow.
You don't really want that.
No.
Because people get all, it's
just in their feelings.
Oh, it's too much in your feelings. But then in the boutique, it's a mix up of salon style music. So, it's kind of all over the place. And it's all over the place. And I think that's great. And we also, I really like to let, whomever is working in that room needs to have input about what they want to listen to. For sure. And so, my metrics are no angry, I don't want to hear about genitals, nothing that, potentially could be offensive to a coworker. You can't put on, right?
Yeah, no. I worked at a coffee
yeah.
shop. It was very, it was a different time. It was a different time when it was Boston. So I don't know how many of the same rules apply, but there definitely was always a discussion of the music and its importance
Yes.
and the vibe setting.
Yes. And like one of the, like someone here really loves like 70s rock, which
Sure.
is super fun. That's super fun kitchen music for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
with Valentine's Day around the corner and speaking to someone who's been a lifelong gift giver, I would feel remiss not to get your advice on the perfect type of gift for the holiday season. And let's just make it in the world of something edible. What's your advice? Is there too much? Is there like, okay, you've gone over the top? Is there just the right amount? What type of thinking needs to go into giving that special someone or just anyone in their life for something special for Valentine's Day?
So I think the big thing is to really listen to what that person likes.
Mm-hmm.
So I would pay attention. You know, if this is a new relationship or a well-established relationship, what is that person like? Right? So you're really like sort of transporting into their minds and their taste. This year, we actually have a floral pop-up happening in Glendale on the 13th and 14th from Heirloom LA. They've got a new floral. Yeah, super fun. So we're like, hey, man, one-stop shop. Get your flowers and your chocolate or your cake, you know? I like to do two things generally. So say it's someone who loves breakfast. I might do 2 jars of jam and 6 scones. I think that's a lovely Valentine's Day.
I like that. I like that.
Like lovely. If it's someone who really, really loves chocolate, I'm going big. I'm going for that big box with a big bow because you will never get that for yourself.
No. Ever.
Right? Ever. But that is a lovely thing to share with someone. I also think it's great to do like a bottle of champagne and chocolates or a bottle of wine, like red wine, that kind of thing is really great too. So we also have candles by La Photo Low here, Darling Wendy Polish's company. We've got some lovely ceramics. So it really is, I think it's about listening to the person and what the recipient has expressed that they really enjoy rather than here's what I want to get you.
Gift me the way I want to be gifted. Yeah.
For sure. Sure.
Valerie, I cannot thank you enough. If people want to check out events of the space or order stuff from you or just follow along with Valerie Confections adventures, where can they go?
So many places. You can follow me at Valerie Confections on Instagram. And you can go to Valerie Echo Park in the heart of Echo Park. It's really cheers. It's where all the cool kids go.
Yes.
We're in Glendale, of course, and this is the main Valerie Confections. Our website is valerieconfections.com. And you can also sign up for my newsletter that just launched last month. It's called Hi Gang. And that's on Substack, Valerie Gordon on Substack. Sign up. You get fun, like we're doing like, you know, special discounts from different brands, lots of recipes, all that kind of good stuff. For the Valentine's Day episode is coming out on the 10th. We're releasing it. And I'm sharing, because my husband and I do the same thing every Valentine's Day. We eat pizza and drink champagne.
There you
That's
go.
our jam.
Is it heart-shaped? Is that pizza heart-shaped?
It's not.
Oh.
It's not, but yours should be. And cheese stuffed, a cheese stuffed crust. See, I listened. You got to know. Someone needs to get that for you, hon. You deserve that.
No,
maybe I'll send you one.
Maybe I think I'm gonna do a rack of ribs of lamb ribs.
Ooh.
Maybe I'll make some flatbreads that are heart shaped, or I'll try it.
This is cute.
Yeah.
Ribs are intimate.
I know it's something that I know that my wife likes and my family likes. So by maybe doing it, I've already bought them. So it is.
I love this. And do you sauce it? Do you sauce those ribs?
Yeah, it's
nice.
It's Andy Baragani's recipe. So it's got a nice yogurt sauce and some fresh herbs and whatnot.
That's a cute Valentine's Day dinner.
Yeah, and you can actually shape them like a heart when you cut them.
get over it.
I
That's
know.
so good.
Well, thank you.
That's perfect.
Well, thanks. Well, yeah. This is going to air.
Now I'm like ribs. Yes, man.
Since it's going to air 2 days before Valentine's Day, anyone is open to steal any of these ideas that we've talked about. But Valerie, I can't thank you enough. Karen, thank you for setting this up. Deeply appreciate it. And we have a song from the archives and then a live performance here on Snacky Tunes on Heritage Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, weighing a combined total of 666 pounds, I give you Hungry As You! From the SUV, hold it down, pound to pound. You thought we were dead? We're fucking back. Bigger, better, and fatter. Let's do this shit right. Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Wisconsin Cheese. There's a reason when you think of Wisconsin, you think cheese. Cheese is a huge part of Wisconsin's history and future. In Wisconsin, the state of cheese, the tradition of cheese-making excellence began 180 years ago, before Wisconsin was recognized as a state. Immigrants traveled to settle in this lush green hills of Wisconsin, bringing their cheese-making traditions with them. These storied skills, combined with the freshest milk available, created a cheese-making culture that is uniquely Wisconsin. Wisconsin's 1,200 cheesemakers, many of whom are third and fourth generation, continue to pass on old-world traditions while adopting modern innovations in cheese-making craftsmanship. Find your next favorite cheese at wisconsincheese.com.
Welcome back. Diane, welcome to Snacky Tunes.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's good to see you again.
Thank you. Yes, you too.
You were the child of a nomadic preacher in Zimbabwe. How did that affect your musical inclinations, and where do you pull influence from those experiences?
I think the fact that I had to move around so much as a small child, and so I was kind of always like having to adapt to a lot of different things, saying goodbye a lot of times to people. So I sort of became a little bit of a recluse in my own mind. And my parents were also a lot older.
And this was also in South Africa, so it was like, there's just like a lot of
There's a lot
backwards.
of that.
There's a lot of backwards.
Yeah.
So it really influenced my music, I guess, just because I started appreciating music so much. My parents were big classical fans, and there was a lot of music in church growing up. So I was very influenced by like church hymns and classical music. And I was very sheltered also, so it made me a little weird.
When did you start playing the piano?
I was 7 when I started playing. Yeah. And I was just sort of not that interested. I mean, my mom was like, "Oh, we're going to a piano lesson today." And I was like, "Okay." And then it was just kind of like one of those things where it just came naturally, and I just loved it so much.
And at that time, or it was at that time, or how much later in life did you start to realize that music is what you wanted to do full time?
Well, I always knew that music was what I wanted to do full time, which is why I always used the excuse, I don't need a college degree. I don't need to finish high school. I'm like, I'm just going to play music.
I don't need to do homework. I don't need to do any of this stuff.
No.
I got the piano.
Yeah, like I already know what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. I always knew I was going to do music. I had no idea I was going to become a singer. I thought I just had like the worst voice, but I prided myself on the fact that I was a pianist, and I'm like, I'm a pianist. I want people to take me seriously as a pianist. And then people were like, why don't you sing? And I was like, no. And then they're like, oh, never mind. And I was like, nobody wants me if I don't sing. So then I started trying to sing, and yeah, I'm still trying to sing.
Which pianists or classical composers were your people growing up?
Well, like Glenn Gould and Leonard Bernstein. I mean, just like all the classical, pianists. And then when I started to get more, and I mean, of course, like Debussy and Chopin and Satie and those composers, I was very influenced by as well. And and I loved like old film scores and like that kind of feel. And so a lot of contemporary composers as well. And so I was just I wanted to just kind of be like a film score or just like compose like weird contemporary classical piano pieces. And then I'm like, that's kind of weird. Maybe
that's really niche.
Maybe that's kind of niche.
Very niche.
Yeah.
As you evolved into this, did playing in hotel lobbies piano help you get over the I'm not a singer to the singer that you are now?
Well, it wasn't really that, but although it did really kind of make me not give as much of a... Am I allowed to say?
Yeah.
I'm like, is this a PG show here? Yeah. Exactly. It kind of made me like not care so much. And give as much of a shit. But it definitely made me more aware of like music and what was going on, and pop music. I started paying more attention. And but then singing, it was more just my friend one day was like, oh, I'm going to this singing class and it's really great. We like talk about our feelings and hold hands and then we meditate, and he has a piano and you should come over and play like background music. And I was like, okay. And then I went there and I ended up writing a song for this class just as like a fun exercise. And then they were like, oh, this is really good. And then I just started doing it.
What songs were introduced to you from the pop world when you started playing in the hotels? Or how far away from you from like what was going on contemporary music?
Well, when I first started doing it, I mean, I've sort of always lived in my own world of like reality. Like I pay attention to certain things and not others. But when I started playing in hotels and restaurants, I was like, okay, I have to learn the standards. So I have to learn like all the classic, Cole Porter, Gershwin, whatever. And then I started playing that, and I was like, okay, this is really cool, but like I want to play some other songs, and I love Radiohead, and I love, all these other pop, anything that I was listening to at the time. And I was like, oh, I could just play any of these on the piano and just sort of make it sound. I just lounged everything out basically. And I was like, everything works. You can lounge anything out. You can lounge out Chopin if you want, or Beethoven.
Ooh, little loungy Chopin.
What is it?
A little loungy Chopin.
Yeah, exactly. You can pretty much, put a grace note on anything.
Can we hear a song?
Yes, please. Quickly before I start saying too much stupid shit.
What are you going to play for us first?
I'll play a song called Kings of Queens. It's actually inspired by the Mets, which I have no interest in really, but my boyfriend does. And he was talking about it very passionately, and I was like, wow, this is so like poetic and beautiful and I turned it into a song. So yeah, I'll go ahead and play that. Kings of Queens.
You left America in your nomadic travels to go to Berlin. What was the decision behind that, and what did you find there for musical inspiration?
Well, I'd sort of just fallen out of love with New York. I'd been here for quite a few years. I was sick of my rent price. I was just sick. I had a dynamic with it that was like, I needed to just shift it up. So the opportunity came to go there and just live for like 10 months to a year. And so there was just like this apartment that we knew through a friend. And so we ended up just being like, yeah, let's go. And it was great. It sort of reinvigorated my idea of music and just, there's all these great studios, and there's like this amazing German gear, and everything works really well.
Efficient.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was just it's a really beautiful city. I mean, we had a really nice apartment. I just stayed inside all day long and just wrote songs, and just the feeling there. It has a real creative community, and it just kind of took me out of like the pressure and everything of New York, and sort of brought me back to like this really quiet place where I sort of just figured out what I wanted to do next.
Most people know Berlin for its late night techno and dance music and 72-hour clubs. What is the more piano focused singer-songwriter scene like there, and how is that?
I mean, I don't hang out. I was at the Berghain like every night, like jamming on the dance floor. No, I'm kidding. I wasn't. I don't really know. I was pretty reclusive. I didn't really check out like what was going on, and like I don't even know what's going on in any singer-songwriter scene anywhere, really. So yeah, I didn't listen to a ton of music or go see a ton of music. There's a lot of things that the city had to offer that I didn't really make the most use of, but for me it was more just about being there, being in that space and that environment. I met great musicians. I sort of tailor-made the whole experience to what I needed at that point in my life.
So let's talk about the new album, New, and how it came together. And you mentioned that it was a reclaiming of creative control.
Yes.
How did that happen, and why did that happen, and how did the new album come together?
Well, I was on a label for 7-8 years, and
Sure.
There was a lot of creative battles that were fought, and when I left them a couple years ago, it was I started just learning Ableton, and I was like, I'm going to do everything myself. No one's coming near anything I ever do ever again. And back off everything. I'm like, I got this. I'll do everything. And I'm also a control freak, so it was like a great way for me to realize that actually that's not always the best thing. But I just started writing all these songs. I had like all these things in my Ableton that I was like, what am I going to do with this stuff? And it slowly started coming together. And then when we went to Berlin, my boyfriend was just like, oh, there's all these studios here, and I know this person who can introduce you to that person, and there's musicians, and why don't we just like record a bunch of the songs? And I was like, I don't know, like, money, da 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 da. And then he was just like, let's just do it, and then just self-release it, and start a label. And I don't know, he's like, let's just do this. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. And so it was just kind of those things, like, it was so simple. I just made this decision, like, yeah, you're going to do this. You're going to record it, and you're going to put it up on Bandcamp, and you're not going to make a big deal about it, and you're just going to sell it to your fans. And so
awesome.
Yeah. And so it was just incredible. I mean, I came from the mastering studio, and within like an hour they were uploaded onto Bandcamp, and it was released, and people were buying it, and like the money was going into my PayPal account, and I'm like, this has never happened in like my entire career. I've never seen a dime.
The internet, right?
I know. And it was just like, it's incredible because artists are so powerful, and we have such tools now, with being able to have this direct line of contact to our fan base and have the support. There's all these things that we can do, and we don't actually need, this whole machine necessarily around us in the way that maybe in the past it was much more enticing. So it definitely made me feel powerful and just like, yeah, I can do what I want. And, when you put on the business hat, which is hard to do sometimes,
right.
You realize you have a lot of power.
What are some of the things that you still feel that you need to learn as now having your own label, or things that are still not totally there that you had from the support of being on a label before?
Well, obviously, like the money thing is nice, but as I've come to realize, like, more money, more problems, obviously.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, it's this thing. I coined it myself. Yeah. Once you have a lot of people in the mix and you have all these other opinions, and it's very difficult to like retain your artistic vision. And sometimes your vision just shifts and it changes, and you need to be surrounding yourself with people that you really trust and that are on the same page as you. But yeah, financially, that's one of the harder things. But at the same time, I have so many like friends. I have such a community. There's such a like heavy, deep artistic community of people that are very generous with their time, with their creativity. And like, I pull in favors. I have so many people that are just like, we want to help you. We want to do this for you. And when you don't have that big label behind you, actually people feel more compelled to do stuff for you because they're like, oh, you're doing something. We believe in this. We're passionate about it. And we're doing that. We believe in it and we want to support this for the right reasons, not just because we think we're going to make a buck. And it just brings it back to like the integrity of the intention of what you're doing again. And so, yeah, it's been really good too.
That's awesome. Well, let's get into the mix with another song. How about that?
Sure. This next song is "Stand Under My Love." I guess I'll play that one.
Sure.
Okay, it feels like maybe a fitting song for these insane times we're living in right now. All right. Somebody on the left, somebody on the right. Somebody in the dark, somebody in the light. They're harder than stone, make you feel so all alone. The drugs don't work, there's too much hurt. Gotta find another road. Gotta bear the heavy load. Somehow, big sky come crashing down. There has to be a place for us in this world, with a little shelter from up above. Little lies at every turn. I wanna be the face you trust in this world. When you need a little shelter, stand under my love. Somebody in the right, somebody in the wrong. Shaking hands with the devil mind, paying for protection, but there's none. Hand on my heart when the future falls apart, and the fire won't burn and the wheels won't turn, and there's not another road. We will bear the heavy load together. Big sky come crashing down, and there has to be a place for us in this world, with a little shelter from up above. Little lies at every turn. I wanna be the face you trust in this world. When you need a little shelter, stand under my love. Baby, you can stand under my love. Well, the story is in stone, and the future may be known. When there's nothing left to say, I'll cover you, babe. Together we'll last for another day. Big sky come crashing down. There has to be a place for us in this world, with a little shelter from up above. Little lies at every turn. I wanna be the face you trust in this world. When you need a little shelter, I stand under my love. Oh, stand under my love. Ooh, you can stand under my love. Oh, baby.
Let's talk about the real reason why you're here. Cream of the crib.
Oh, God. Oh, yes.
Peasant dishes made with royal ingredients. Your food Instagram profile.
Oh, yes, which I haven't updated in a minute.
Well, here's a good
reason.
This is actually an intervention from your team to bring you back into the food world.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful site.
Oh, thanks.
Did you make all the food yourself?
Yeah, duh.
What was the inspiration behind it, and how did it evolve?
Well, first of all, I love food. I love to eat. I love good ingredients. I love high quality ingredients. I'm not I don't know how to cook really at all, but I just like to put certain things together. I used to live across the street from Marlowe and Sons in Williamsburg, and also from their place Marlowe and Daughters, which has really beautiful produce and stuff. And so I was always in there, and they had all these great dishes, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to do eggs, and that's an interesting concoction, and oh yeah, I should try that. And then I ended up just sort of trying things out, and then I'm like, that's so pretty, I should photograph it. And then I'm like, where do I put this? It's I can't put it on my Instagram because that's lame. And I'm like, I'm just going to start a food Instagram, and nobody's even going to pay attention, but it's going to look pretty when I scroll through, and I want to remember my recipes.
It's really pretty. You have a great roasted chicken.
It's really pretty. It's beautifully shot.
Thank you.
Is that also shot by yourself?
Well, yeah. I mean, I have an art director, and we've discussed it at length. But it's some iPhone simple side. The plate's sort of at a slight angle, and yeah,
nice natural light. So you have a show coming up this Wednesday at Babies.
It's actually
Tuesday at Babies.
Yeah.
Who are you playing with?
I have a really great band. It's like a full-on band. I have a little string section. I have Stuart Matthewman, the sax player of the Sade band. He's playing with me. Aaliyah is playing with me. And so it's going to be exciting.
Although no one could see where you pointed because it's radio. It's
I'm so sorry.
The bass, the silent bass player.
The silent bass player.
Silent bass player.
Yes.
That's great. So where can people find the EP, find the records, put money in your PayPal account?
Yeah. Well, you can buy it you can get it everywhere. You can. If you like, I recommend buying it on Bandcamp because you can get high quality audio files, and you just go.
Shout out to Bandcamp. Who doesn't love Bandcamp?
I know, it's incredible, actually.
And they just donated all their sales on Friday to the ACLU.
Really? Yeah. I did not even know that.
Yeah.
Okay, I love me. Only buy it on Bandcamp, please. Yes, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even more reason, I would be totally happy to have them take all the proceeds from that and give it to ACLU.
And you also have a European tour coming up as well.
Yeah, I'm leaving February. I'm going to go play some shows, and I'm playing in Berlin and Paris and London, and then going back again in May. I'm working on a full-length album now with Aaliyah. He's my producer on it, and so it's exciting. We're excited to play shows and get back out there.
Last question.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to people who want to take back more and more control of their musical projects? And what are some of the hardest things that you faced along the way that you got through and that you would just give some advice to newcomers?
Just figure out a way to get the money. Never don't do something because of money. I feel like there's always a way to get a little chunk of change or pull in a favor, and you make the money back, and just keep doing it. Keep informing your fans. Just believe that there's people out there that actually care, and don't get swept up in the whole thing that if you don't have all this team of people around you paying you tons of attention and showering you with praise, that's the only type of scenario that's going to get you into the public eye or whatever. I don't know. I don't really know what advice. I'd have to think about it a little.
No, that was good advice.
That was perfect.
But just basically do it. Just do it. You'll figure it all out. Everything will happen for you. I mean, the other little side note is that I engineered and I produced and I mixed a lot of news, which was totally intimidating. But just power through it, and then you learn, and then you keep getting better and better. And everybody starts at a certain point. Everybody's an amateur at some point. So
I like to say that Julia Child at one point didn't know how to make eggs.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then she watched the Jacques Pepin YouTube tutorial.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's exactly how it happened. Alternative cooking facts. Well, we want to thank Jameson for coming on. Please make sure to check out Wine Enthusiast magazine to the 2017 Best Wine Travel Destinations. Diane, good to see you again. Thank you so much for coming on. We will be back next week with a brand new all LA-based episode of Snacky Tunes. What are you going to take us out with?
I'm going to play a song called Juno, inspired by that epic snowstorm when they shut the city down a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for listening. And we will be back next week with a brand new episode of Snacky Tunes.
Cool. Thank you.
Governor says stay home, saving the arms of a lover. We barely come back from the summer. I wanna watch the sky coming down like it's the end, like it's the end. Walking the air is no joke, spinning the edge of the weather. It's any wonder you stick together. And I hold up the sky, coming down until the end, until the end.
We talk about food, we talk about music with musical dudes.
Snacky Tunes is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.